Welcome to Zim Who Days Live. This is the Orange is the New Black podcast. This is episode number 88. I'm with my co-host Ace Boogie. What's good, bro?
Chilling, bro. Like we said on the phone, we gotta figure some things out and talk about it for sure.
So Ace just did an episode earlier today that he uploaded. So please check that out in the Apple Podcast Store. Check that on Spotify. Everything, anything, all the different streaming sites, whatever. So that's one thing. He hit on a lot of different points. He talked about the disappearance or whatever. This whole fiasco with AJ Green was the main thing. He talked about a lot of other cool points too. One of the main reasons why I wanted to come on live today is because I think maybe my message is misconstrued. Maybe you could talk about how you feel maybe a day or two after the loss. Just to recap, people, we just got the doors blown off of us against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, 27-3. Probably could have been worse. There's an argument to say it could have been better. Did you have any points that you wanted to talk about from that game that you just thought stood out that maybe that me and you didn't get a chance to talk about?
I think one thing that stood out is I think you had put it perfectly. You had said I think the Jags recapper before that you were like most people just try to immediately blame the coaching, right? And when it came to Zach, he was pretty much the scapegoat. And I felt like in this game, just from watching it from my standpoint, I wasn't really disappointed with the coaching. Like obviously they weren't prepared for the blitz. But I saw him make adjustments in terms of trying to go to screens and stuff like that, and it just didn't work. And I saw so many people blaming Zach for this game. And the thing that stuck out to me was I felt like one thing that has been reoccurring throughout all of these 4 weeks has been that there's been times where Joe Burrow has kind of held the ball too long. And I felt like in this game, that was very evident, and it led to some crucial turnovers in that game. The first was when he got hit from behind with the fumble. And I know that Baltimore likes to try to cause those fumbles, so I was worried about that. With them coming into this game, I knew that they had forced 7 of them, and I knew that they would try to do that. Obviously, they had a second one with Burrow, and then they had another one with Mike Thomas where Marlon Humphrey punched it out, and they took it back for a touchdown. But to me, I didn't really see anything from a coaching perspective outside of if you want to talk about pre-game plan going in, and the blitz and stuff, then maybe that. But I didn't really see anything that was like, this is on Zach Taylor per se, other than him, of course, obviously sticking with Jim Turner, sticking with this offensive line. And for me, that's just what I kind of saw from it. And I think some people took it as that I was just being harsh on Burrow. And I wasn't trying to say that. I was just saying when we blame certain things, depending on whether it's the defense, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's the offensive line, and the offensive line still didn't play great at all. But I think that those key plays kind of turned the tide in the game. And that's just what I was getting at. Joe Burrow played like a rookie. I'm not holding that against him. It's a rookie going against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think that anybody would be able to go into that situation cool, calm, and collected. And I think that we were kind of spoiled a little bit because he had played so well in all of these games. We hadn't really for sure seen that rookie moment, but it had to come in this game. And it's unfortunate that it had to be that. But outside of that, that's all that I really took from that game. I thought the defense played a hell of a game, especially against Lamar Jackson. If you would have told me going into that game that defense would have had that performance, I would have laughed at you. Honestly, I thought that there were I counted four to five possible interceptions. I think he had one in that game, but there were just a bunch where our defenders just dropped them. And it was just honestly, it didn't look like Lamar Jackson. And I kind of got some more light shed on that later when Ing Raven said that one of his childhood friends actually died right before the game, and he found out right before the game. So I think it was a mix of the knee injury, that going on, and all of that. But the Bengals defense definitely came to play. But all of the stuff that we kind of saw with the AJ play and all of that, we know I kind of already talked about and gave my thoughts on that. Definitely want to hear yours on it. But that's what I kind of took away from the game. It was just kind of deflating to me because I felt like this wasn't even the best version of the Ravens offense. And it was we played amazing on defense. And it was if we would have just gave the offense something, this would have been a game where it was at least competitive. And I feel like the score makes it look like it was so bad. but we were really in that game. We just couldn't do anything offensively when they kept blitzing us and stuff like that.
Right. Like, I think I try to take my blinders off and try to take my Bengals fandom out of it as much as I can. If I'm looking at it from a Baltimore standpoint, there were a lot of other plays too. Like if you think about like the fumble that Mixon actually saved, he kicks it, he knocks it out of bounds. Like there's a lot of different plays that I feel like it could have got worse, and the defense really bailed us out like throughout the game. It reminded me of every single game that we've had in the last couple of years where it's just like this 3-and-out type of thing. And for the first time ever, I felt like when we got the ball, I didn't feel as confident. That was the first time I felt like that. Like when they would get the ball, like if any of you all were in here now, were in my live stream, like I wasn't even as hyped because I just felt as though like whenever he had the ball, it just seemed like predictable. Like talking to players like after the game, talking to friends of players after the game, talking to people around it, it was the first time I just think that Joe Burrow was like rattled. And I could feel it. I'm pretty sure people felt it at home. I think me and Ace were talking about it, and we were talking about Lamar. And it was a lot of people that said I was sucking Lamar off. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just giving him up. Like, I'm one of them guys, though, if somebody is really, really good and y'all don't get a chance to watch him, it's my job to tell you how good this person is. Like, he didn't win an MVP just because he can run the football. Like, that's a big misconception. And although he did not play a really good game at all, it was an average game for him. He did what he had to on third down. If Joe Burrow would have did that on third down, I just think that we're talking 27-30, like Ravens or Bengals or whatever, and it just wasn't. And there were plays out there again to be made. But there was also a lot of lackluster things going on, which kind of leads me to the AJ Green thing. I feel like everybody's using AJ Green currently right now, or a select group of people are using AJ Green as a scapegoat right now. And is AJ Green helping the team? No. Is AJ Green what he was before? No. But with that said, this is a guy that is on the cusp of making he could potentially be a Hall of Famer. And he's not that far removed from it, whether you feel as though it's been 3 years of injury prone. Like when I hear people talk about it too, they're like, hey, he hasn't been done anything in 3 years. Like, cool. 2018, he was killing people in the slot. He was doing his thing, and the season ended short. And that's the last that we've seen of him, honestly. But to step from there and see what he did in the slot, and then see him in training camp, those same people that don't really believe in him right now, y'all believe in Dave Lapham, I'm sure. There's not too many people that don't believe in Dave Lapham. Dave Lapham gives you encouraging stuff from AJ Green from what he sees in camp. He looks like an Olympian. He's training like he looks as good as he's ever looked. That's the report every single week. Now, him doing something with that hamstring, I think kind of hampered what he had coming up or what he had ramping up for the season. With that said, a 75% AJ Green is still better than, I would fancy to say 50 to 60% of the NFL. So people that are jumping out there, and this is the only beef that I have, notice that I said he's not the same he was. I would entertain a trade. I would entertain moving AJ to the slot. I would entertain a lot of different things for AJ Green because he's done so many different things for the organization. But one thing that I won't have is people call him trash, or like people hitting me and saying like he's trash and da 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 da. Like, you don't have to say that to say that you're frustrated that we're losing. Like that's if you want to say that you're frustrated that we're losing, take your frustration out at people at your home or something like that. Like, you don't just go on the internet and then just crumble. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's bigger than all of this. Like, that's a guy that potentially, like, is a role model for, like, every single kid that I know when I go to Bengals games, they got on AJ Green jerseys. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you just wake up 5 games into a season after this guy's gone 6 out of 8 years to the playoffs, and that's your scapegoat? Oh, but he always has injuries. You know, act like he wanted the injuries. Oh, well, he's getting paid 18. Y'all act like he wanted the franchise tag. He wanted a fair contract. He didn't want to be the highest paid dude. And this is what happens. Like when DJ Reader goes out, Trey Waynes go out, stuff like that. Nobody's going out and saying like it's all their fault. It's all their fault. Like people need to understand that the circumstances, the timing, and a lot of different things aren't going in our favor. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But to suggest that AJ Green is the reason, and I'm not saying this because we interviewed AJ Green, or maybe I am. I don't even care. But it's because I love, there's some players that I love just as much as I love the football team. And to me, if you're going to talk about AJ, just talk about the offense. Like, and then if you're going to talk about the offense, let's talk about the coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's where that will go. And that was the main thing I was trying to say. I'm not so much of a homer that I think that AJ Green is elite. He should be the highest paid or anything. Like you couldn't trade him. Like I'm sure entertain a trade, but if the trade value is coming back with a 6-round pick or something, he's coming off the books at the end of the year anyway. So like whatever you get, I mean, I guess you could say yeah, like it's worth a 6-round, 7-round pick or whatever you think. I mean, I've seen reports of 3rd round, I've seen 5th round. To me, that's not fair compensation for him, especially when we're talking about what he's done for the community, and for the organization as a whole. When Joe Mixon was signed for the amount of money that he was, it's not just because he's a good running back. It's what he could do for a team's chemistry, what he brings to the locker room, and you got to buy into that. So there's a value to that. And just serving him off for a late round pick or something like that is tasteless, is really petty. And the same people that are just suggesting that, why aren't y'all saying that about other players on the team that are, and I'm not going to name those people. You could go on Sports Track or any of these websites and go look at some of these contracts. Some of these contracts are not really that good. To suggest that a guy playing on a tag that he didn't ask for, like that's just kind of lame to me. Like, and I think as a Bengals fan, you owe him that much, like just respect of like, you don't have to call him trash. Let's entertain a trade if you think he should go. Let's work out something you think. I'm on the other side. I think Zach Taylor needs to figure out a way to get John Ross and AJ Green involved. He also needs to figure out a way to do a lot to just get the run game going, period. What do you feel about that? Like, I guess, like, ultimately, like, what's your stance on the AJ Green thing?
Before I get into it, breaking news around the NFL, the Jets just cut Le'Veon Bell. This just literally happened.
Whoa.
But I think my stance on the AJ Green thing, and I think like too many people are trying to put into it, oh, you guys interview him and stuff like that. And that's cool. You guys can feel that way. You can feel like we're biased or something like that towards certain players. But I think like when I watched Zim's stream, because I was feeling the same exact way, he said the same thing that I thought. Like, we've been trying to piece together for weeks now what's really been going on with like this whole AJ Green situation. And we haven't asked him or anything like that. This isn't like a direct source from us talking to him or anything like that. But the facts are out there. Like you can look into, and I feel like a broken record saying this, but look into it from this perspective. Some people are like, oh, well, just man up and play and this and that. Like AJ cares about the fans. He cares about this organization. He cares about playing football. And so we go back to what was going on. Coronavirus happens in the middle of AJ prepping to come back for a season after going down in training camp last season. You know what else happened last season in training camp? That was the first year of the Zach Taylor era, the first year of a new offense. You guys heard him say, I'm still learning this offense. He literally was interviewed earlier in this season and said that I'm still learning this offense. I don't know if any of you have played football. I've only played at a high school level. It's not easy learning a new offense. Like, it's not like these guys can just sit down, and I can't even imagine what an NFL playbook is like, but you have to do that. So he has to learn a brand new offense that he hasn't been in. Number 2, he's not allowed to throw with Joe Burrow. Now, think about it. All of the guys that are connecting with Joe Burrow, he's been able to practice with them. You talk about Tyler Boyd, you talk about T. Higgins. These guys were practicing with him. AJ, outside of maybe a week and a half after he went down with the hamstring injury, had no practice with him. So he hasn't played in a year and a half. He has to learn a new offense. He has to catch passes from a quarterback that he doesn't know. At least he knew what he was getting in Andy Dalton in terms of where he puts the ball and all of that. This was all new for him when it came to Joe. All right, cool. So that happens. Then he gets a hamstring injury. I've injured my hamstring before. I don't know if you guys have or not. It's not something that's easy to diagnose when it is healed. Now, I don't know about the technology, but back in like 2008 and stuff, like you didn't know if your hamstring was good until you actually tested it. So there's that thing. It's a lingering injury. So that's keeping him out of practice. Even more time that he can't practice with Joe Burrow, even more time that he can't do any of that. So then he gets in. Everyone says, oh, he looks slower. And at first, I didn't want to admit it because I saw the open pass that him and Joe weren't on the same page. That could have been a touchdown. He could have had 2 touchdowns in that first game, but that's neither here nor there. And then, like, my cousin told me, he was like, he looked slower because he pulled his hamstring. And I was like, he was like, you should know you pulled your hamstring. And I had to think about it. And I'm like, is he playing hurt? Like, nobody ever asked him if he was playing hurt. And some people are making the excuse, well, he should have played in this and that. You got to think about the situation like Zim said. They handed him $18 million. Imagine going into this season based off of what happened last season where people felt like he milked the injury, that if he were to sit out this season, the first 4 weeks, you guys would have killed him like you're killing him now. You would have been like, oh, my God, trade AJ because he's not suiting up. So instead of doing that, he tried to honor the fans and, to me, go out and play, and he's in an uncomfortable situation. He said that week 2 when they interviewed him and they asked him what's going on. He said, I need to learn a new offense. I need reps. I didn't have a preseason, mind you, because of COVID. So there weren't 4 games for him to play. He still wasn't even in game shape. And you're asking this guy to do all of this stuff like I don't even know. Like, I don't understand what you would expect from this guy at this point. And I think that some people are just chopping it up. And it's sad to say that they're just like, oh, he's just old, like he doesn't have it anymore and this and that. When you're not discounting all of that stuff that's going on. We watched Odell Beckham Jr. come into the same situation outside of AJ Green, but he actually played the season before. But he came in off an injury, played with Baker Mayfield, set the whole preseason, and once they played, they had zero chemistry. And people were like, OBJ is washed up. He's washed. He's not worth it. They need to trade him and this and that. And what's happening this season? Now that they've actually played together, now that they've had an offense, or he's learned the offense, they've had an offseason together, they look good. OBJ looks like OBJ. So I'm not saying that he's going to be prime AJ Green or anything like that, but he's definitely a hell of a lot better than what we've seen. And what we've seen isn't based off of his talent level right now. There's a whole bunch of circumstances where, just like Joe Burrow, if you talk about this offensive line, you talk about having Jim Turner there, we would all say that Joe Burrow is not in the perfect situation to be successful. Well, it's similar with AJ Green. This coaching staff did not really give him favors. There's going to be people saying, oh, you're just making excuses. That's the reality of what is going on. Like, it's out there. So for me, it just hurts to hear people just say, oh, he's trash, trade him and stuff like that, right, when you're not looking at the full picture. And it's not like you haven't heard from him, and it's not like he's tried to explain what's going on. And right, it just hurts to see the fans just turn on him like that.
People suggesting that he's like, I had somebody I was talking to on Twitter earlier. I hope he's in here. I don't know if what your name on YouTube is, but he's like, yeah, he greased them for 3 years and took the Bengals money. And somebody else was like, yeah, he weaseled out of it. Like, y'all really think like AJ Green, like, let me tell you personally, he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. Under no circumstances does he think that him taking quick money, like immediate money, and then running off with it, lying to people, telling them that he's hurt. Like, no, he's trying to produce. Like, his only obsession in life is to produce. That's all I really wanted to say about that part. The next part of the AJ Green thing is I want to get your thoughts on it, because part of this is the non-production of the 5 games, or the lack of. He has produced somewhat and almost had a game-winning touchdown in his first week with no preseason. But we'll skip right over that. The next part is this is the first time that I've seen him quit on a play. And I'll be the first one to say that. So a lot of people say, Jim, why did you post even on my Instagram, I put it on my story, I might have posted it on my Twitter, where he's the ball sails over his head. Let's go back and say he's clearly frustrated with the offense, period. Before that's even going on, I left my live stream on my Instagram. Y'all could go see the plays before the first two drives. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, do y'all see like that? Like, this is not how we run our offense here. And I guess I don't know if that's a Zach Taylor thing, a Callahan thing, but AJ Green is the focal point of like, that's just what we're accustomed to. And even if he's not the focal point, that's cool. He still needs to get a touch just to get into the groove of the game and just make all the defensive backs like, cognizant of him being there. So the next step is he finally gets to throw to him, but it's Burrow throwing a ball that he had no business throwing. He overthrows the guy because he's trying to hold. He had enough time. He went a little bit longer. Overthrows the guy, goes over his head. AJ Green knows the ball's going over his head, quits on the play. John Ross type stuff, right? Goes right over his head. He knows there's the defender right there. How he thinks that the play's over, I think this is just my opinion. I think he's so frustrated with the play that he like that's the first target I get. He's like, oh. And he put it's kind of like in the NBA, they have a play and the guy gets fouled and then they like complaining, arguing down on the other field. They don't understand that the opposing team is now taking the ball to the other side of the court.
Right.
The opposing team is taking the ball to the other side of the court. He looks up, he sees it, and he makes this business decision. Instead of him going to go tackle the guy, he's keeping his head on a swivel, evading a crackback block. And my theory is this. It looks crazy because it looks like he's blocking for the Ravens. He's not. He's trying to run past everybody so that if the guy breaks a tackle, he could go catch him on the other end, which is bad. Like, that's not a good thing. He should be going to go try to tackle the guy. You're a football player, period. Like, first of all, you gave up on the throw. Now go tackle the guy. He's trying to not get messed up on a crackback block and trying to run past all that so that if the guy breaks off, then he can tackle him. So now I post that. Yes, I'm very upset because when I talk about AJ Green, I'm talking about effort. I'm talking about greatness. We just watched LeBron James just win a title. I put AJ Green in those same type of conversations as far as like greatness on the court. In our interview with AJ Green, we're talking about the greats and we're comparing them like the Kawhi Leonards of the world and different things like that. That was part of our conversation. So that's not something that I want to see, no matter how frustrated you are. But at the same time, it would never allow me to call him trash. And I think maybe I'm just sensitive to that word or something like that, and maybe I got to chill. But that's a regular occurring thing on my page, on my Twitter, on my Instagram, where people are just saying, trash, get him out of here. Like, that's the part that just throws me off. What is your interpretation of that play?
So that's the play that we kind of have brought into perspective. And I kind of made the analogy on the AFC North Talk channel about looking at when AJ has been frustrated, right? And so obviously, I think, like you said, he was frustrated. It was a culmination of all of that stuff. I also think it was a culmination of him not wanting to get hurt because obviously we remember when Andy Dalton went and tackled a Steeler, how that happened. He broke his thumb and stuff like that. And he already has an injury. The other thing is this. Like, we didn't see when he tore his hamstring. So how do we know that he didn't pull up on his hamstring right then and there? Like, so say, for instance, he pulled his hamstring or re-aggravated it on that play, and he's just trying to avoid somebody. That could be it as well. But even if you want to say that it's that he didn't show effort, how many, just think about it. If you're a Bengals fan, how many times have you seen him look at a errant thrown Andy Dalton pass for 10 plus years, and he always made an effort? This isn't something where it's been a repetitive behavior or anything like that. He's frustrated. And when I talk about the frustration in the parallel to 2018, everybody talks about the Jalen Ramsey fight, right? But one thing that people forget about is when they asked him about it, he said that he was just frustrated. Like, you got to remember, before that Jalen Ramsey fight happened, AJ made a double move, beat Ramsey, would have had enough space to possibly score a touchdown after Ramsey had been talking trash on him, and Andy Dalton throws that pass out of bounds. Like, he had clearly beat Jalen Ramsey on that play. And, they were off. And then if you also remember a reoccurring issue then, and AJ was very vocal about it. He hasn't been as vocal in recent years, and maybe it's because he hasn't been on the field, but he was frustrated with the offensive line, and that was 2018. And when you can't get time to get the ball and everyone starts to blame you and you can't get out of your routes and your progressions before somebody is in Joe Burrow's face, like they did on that pass where Joe just had to throw it up, it's going to affect them and it's going to affect him. And he wants to be great, like Zim said, and he wants to silence the critics, but he can't in this situation. He can't. He's almost stuck. Like he can't do anything because if Joe Burrow can't get him the ball, AJ can't get the ball. He can't make plays out there and silence the naysayers. And the other thing is this. I don't know what happened.
Talk about the sideline. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm getting right into that. That's a perfect segue. Then they go to the sideline and they see him on the sideline talking. Like we said, we haven't talked to him or anything. I wouldn't put it past this coaching staff that they benched him. I wouldn't. We saw what happened to Carlos Dunlap this week.
He's in full uniform.
We saw what happened to John Ross. I wouldn't put it past them that they did that. And if they did that, that pisses me off because they have not put AJ in any type of way to have success. And then you bench him. I would say trade me.
But let's talk about that. All right. So you talked about the hamstring earlier. Maybe if I'm playing devil's advocate, maybe the coaching staff looks at him and says, bro, you're just not running routes like I thought, like we want you to.
Right.
Is that a good enough reason to bench him? Or if he's saying, hey, I want it, like he's in full uniform. Right. You know, like he's not stretching out a hamstring. Like if he has something with his hamstring, like they putting a roller on you. They might take you to the back, whatever, like take you to blue tip, something. Like he didn't do any of that.
You would have been getting work on you and stuff like how do you bench AJ Green? Like how do you have the audacity?
How do you bench John Ross for Erickson?
Yeah, you bench John Ross. Now you're going to bench AJ Green. Like, are we going to bench Tyler Boyd next? Like, if Tyler Boyd runs the wrong route, do you bench him? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And you know, like if that's what happened
currently right now, I feel like Sean Williams, to a certain extent,
it's crazy.
It's kind of been benched. Like if you look at the snap distribution, if the first game, I was like, yeah, I mean he's just getting back. I would love that. We're gonna have to monitor Geno.
Geno barely played. Snap count.
I mean, that's his first game. Cool, but now this is the next part that I think we can get into now. Is this? Mm-hmm. I have a theory moving forward that Zach Taylor and his crew, I don't know if they have the time that everybody thinks they do because they're kind of making some rash decisions. I feel like behind the scenes a little bit, and it's kind of carrying over to the players now, where it feels as though there's a lot more pressure on him now. Now when he comes to press conferences, he's answering less questions. They knew about the AJ Green thing because when they were asked about Zach Taylor was asked about the AJ Green trade request thing or whatever, he said, we're handling it in-house. If he hadn't seen that, then he would have said, no, I hadn't seen it at all. So it's a lot of things going on behind the scene that I think if you're really paying attention to pressers and different things like that, this is one thing that I don't like. Zach Taylor benches certain players in favor of the guys that he likes. At first it was Mike Thomas. Now it's clearly Alex Erickson over John Ross, when clearly you need a deep threat in all of these games. Whether y'all like John Ross or don't, you cannot deny the fact that John Ross scored 7 touchdowns in a season when he was healthy. You cannot deny what John Ross has done when he was healthy. You can take all the bad plays that you want. I can show you a million of those with Tyreek Hill every week. He has 2 kind of questionable plays every single week, but Chiefs fans don't care because the boom versus the bust is often higher. Bengals fans, I think, are a little bit more used to structure with guys that are short-handed, like a TJ Houshmandzadeh, Ocho Cinco's of the world, different things like that. So I think like it's not in our nature to see a guy make a mistake and then not be right on him. You know, like we're used to Zimmer-like defenses, no mistakes. Some of these other organizations, I think, are a little bit more lenient towards that stuff. But that's a whole nother conversation. I feel like he's not doing what he needs to do with the players that are in place to make bigger plays. Von Bell should be stepping up in the box on a lot of these different plays. Sean Williams, like now that you're now really, really hurt on the front, there's some different creative things that Lou Anarumo is going to have to do. We're going to see what happens coming up. And like you said, they had a really, really good game. But I feel like they're pressing as a unit to make some things happen. And the reason why I say that is because 61 dropbacks in the guy's second game with Joe Burrow only screams to me that somebody has to win this game because they're holding on for dear life or something, in my opinion. Like, looking at that game, there were points where they could have, like, took their foot off the gas a little bit, but they're still, like, trying. I'm already at a point, and I guess my expectation with the Ravens game wasn't as high. You talked to me before the game. I talked to a lot of people. I just knew – I didn't say that we would lose, but I just knew that was a better football team, period. But there comes a time and there's a point where if he really, really cared about the players or really cared about the organization and his job isn't on the line, he has to take the next step. And the next step is preserving Joe Burrow at all costs. And maybe he's doing that with AJ Green. But the reason why I say that is because I wrote this tweet. They have to. If people killed me and said, what are you talking about? They can't run the football. They have to run the football. They don't have any other option. Like, if it means that they have to lose games, they're unable to block for him in a pass setting. So if they care about the future, if we're building off of momentum, if we're talking about progression of players and different things like that, you're 1-3-1. The division is going crazy. Everybody's winning in our division. You're so far out of the race already, and you're getting your quarterback killed every week at the same time. You might not be good at it now, but I think to build off of what they currently have right now, they need to run the football ad nauseum, like run the football a lot. Maybe run the football and make us pissed on 3rd down and 7, maybe. Like, it's that extreme to me because they have to get Joe Burrow isn't ever going to – he's a gamer. He's never going to stop hiking the football and trying to make that extra play. He's going to take a lot of sacks here in Cincinnati. So get used to it. Like, that's not even what this is about. He's always going – we have to protect him. And the only way to protect him is to run the shit out of the football. Even if you aren't good at it, get good at it. Period. What do you feel about that? Because I said a lot.
I just think
it might not be wins.
I don't like how there's accountability being put on these players. And another thing that Carlos Dunlap said is I can't even worry about the game plan because I got to deal with the madness of this coaching staff. I feel like that was somewhat truthful, right? And it's okay to have accountability for your star players and all of that, but where's the accountability for Jim Turner? Like, where has it been? We've never seen any of it. Right. Even when it comes to him calling out Jim Turner or questions being asked about Jim Turner, it's on Burrow. Burrow's holding the ball too long. Like, some of those sacks are on him. It's never any accountability for Jim Turner. It's never anything about Jim Turner. You preached this whole thing when you came in talking about, we're here for upstanding character and this and that. We're not going to take certain players. We're going to get rid of players like Vontaze Burfict and all of that. Then why did you hire Jim Turner? Like, just because he's a family member? Like, that's where they kind of lose me, is if you're going to be consistent and you're going to hold everyone accountable, you have to hold yourself accountable with your play calling. When it comes to possibly giving that, like, you want to give AJ snaps to C. Higgins, why don't you give that playbook to Brian Callahan? Like, why don't you do that? Why don't you try doing that? Like, why don't you give Jim Turner's job to someone else? Because you're letting Burrow get killed, and that's going to get you fired. I'm talking to you right now, Zach. They will fire you if you let Jim Turner command this line and let Joe Burrow get sacked 70 times.
I think
you're going to get out of here.
I think he's willing to go down with it.
And that's the scary part.
He's willing to go down with them.
Well, hey, as a fan, we do not appreciate Joe Burrow taking hits like that, bro. Like, we really don't. Like, we went and did all of this to get this first pick. And we do not want his internal clock ruined. We do not want Derek Carr 2.0. We do not want him to be Bengalized as a rookie, which is what all of the media said. So, Duke, if you're listening to this is for you too. you might have to, if Zach's not gonna fire him, you gotta fire him. And y'all don't have to listen to me. I'm just a fan. I don't know anything about football, but I know one thing: when you got Ravens fans in my comments tweeting me saying, "Oh my goodness, get some help," we feel bad for hitting him that bad. Like that's different, bro. That hits a lot different.
Even in the Jaguars game, you pointed out to me, that's a game where he was protected well. He still took 3 monster hits. He still took 3 monster hits in that game every single week. And I know what I'm saying. Like, you know what do you think about my theory? Like, it's not going to equate to wins. I can assure you, based off of Jim Turner, it might get Jim Turner fired. But one thing that's going to happen, even if he takes a bit of Sean McVay's playbook or anybody's playbook, is the run game has to get established, which is it's never done it. The only time it did it was the last 6 games of last year because they switched to which they're selling us on these offensive linemen. They're selling us on so much crap, and it didn't carry over.
Right.
So
and the run game was struggling last year. It's the same issue. It's the same issue to me. Like they took them into that bye week last year with Mixon to get it going. And it shouldn't be the same thing this season. It shouldn't. I get what you're saying. They definitely need to run the ball. You need to protect Joe Burrow because on the pace that he's getting hit,
I think that's the only way to protect him. Because Joe Burrow is such a gamer that he's not going to just take the safe play every single time. Now, I will say this, and I'm no way siding with Jim Turner. There are about 4 different sacks, I think, in that game, sacks or knockdowns, that I will say are 100% on Joe Burrow, where I'm screaming. I left my stream on my Instagram, Zim_Huda, if y'all just want to rewatch the game with me and you guys missed it. But I'm screaming at the TV, get rid of it, Joe. It got to the point he snapped the ball. I'm like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. By the time you get to 4 Mississippi to 5, 4.4 is the number. If you got the ball longer than 4.4, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, I only look at the best.
The craziest, not to cut you off, but the craziest thing that I saw on Twitter, and I felt the same way that you did, they actually said when you break down his average time that he let the ball go, it was one of the top this weekend. And they were like, oh, he's got to get rid of the ball faster. And some dude tweeted, and he was like, some stats expert was like, it's a shame that they're trying to say that this man has to throw the ball out faster when he was like top 3 this weekend out of all quarterbacks in terms of time, with how fast he got it out of there. And that's just crazy. That's insanity to put that on Joe Burrow and to not, say that the line has to block better for him. How can you just not say that? How can you just not I don't care if it's your father. I don't care if it's your brother. I don't care if it was your mom. Jim Turner needs to get fired. Like Joe Burrow is taking a beating. And if he gets hurt, that's not going to end well for that coaching staff.
I don't even want to say that because you talk about coaches. What about us? What about everybody that's seeing this live right now? Like, what do you do? I don't even know how would I even regroup watching a football game with Ryan Finley? Like, we already know what he is, right? Mm-hmm. How could they expect anybody to cheer for him? Like anybody, I think everybody around the world.
Staff that stood by Ryan Finley. So when Ryan Finley is in there and everyone who has a brain said that Ryan Finley can't even throw a ball over 10 yards, and we still kept him as the quarterback, and we passed on veterans coming in like Joe Flacco and all of that, it just doesn't make sense.
And that was one of the things I was talking about earlier. Like, y'all want to look at contracts, I don't even like Ryan Finley contract, for what he brings from a backup standpoint to this. We are used to having really good backups. Josh Johnson, Jeff Driscoll, AJ McCarron, Fitzpatrick. Our backups have always been solid. This is the first time ever in Bengals history that I can remember a backup like that was just so off the bottom of the scales that you just knew it was 100% over. You had no choice, no chance at all. I mean, we had Jason Campbell as a backup, and now Ryan.
This is Jeff Rowe, Jordan Palmer territory that we're in right now.
Right, and yeah, but the biggest problem is you're watching this young kid. He's full of hope. He's full of joy. He's full of commitment. He's true to Ohio, and then you do this. That's why I say you have to get them out of the like. That's what I'm saying from a viewership standpoint. The little 6,000 people, or maybe now 12,000 that can come in the stadium. I don't even think 12 come. If you get that kid hurt, like that's the message that I don't care if Mike Brown has to come down with his mask on. He has to say that to them. Like, nobody's going to watch us if this kid, this Macaulay Culkin young face right here comes in and he's amazing and y'all just do this to his life. You know, like think about his family and all that stuff like that. Y'all are putting him in such a position to fail. Y'all putting John Ross in a position to fail. You're putting AJ Green in a position to fail. You're putting numerous players in a position not to succeed. You couldn't do that to number 9, right? And that's the problem that I'm like, just run the football. I think most fans will say, eventually will catch on and say, you know what? We're just building, seeing what we got. You at least you know that Joe Burrow wasn't getting killed every week. We might start to build off of that, get a good running game. You play some lesser talent teams, get Joe Burrow on some short third downs, and then start throwing little dump off passes, getting the ball out quick, but just taking the foot off the gas a little bit, not dropping this guy back 40-something times a game and getting him killed is all I'm saying. And that means running a lot. Like you got 2 running backs. The other running back I really like as well. He's paid very well to be a second running back, more than any other running back in the National Football League. They don't utilize them. And that's the problem that I have with this whole staff. It's like the players that do still have stuff left in the tank, if you look all around and you're somebody in here now that's saying AJ Green's lost a step or whatever, do y'all really feel that about like everybody that they're not playing? Like that's the going theme. Gio's lost a step. Where? He doesn't even have any miles on him. The most carries he gets in a game was probably 12 or 14 ever. He's probably the freshest running back in all of the National Football League with talent. And has he lost a step too? At some point, people got to start from the top and work your way down and figure out where it's going to go at. But trying to go at certain players just because they aren't producing or you're frustrated is the ultimate thing that I'm saying. And I think this conversation is really healthy because I think we get to see like all different angles on this thing, but I don't see any angle for a guy that hasn't won anything here to just say, like I told you before the game, I know, like I'm smart enough to know when I'm around people that are way smarter than me. Zach Taylor is not that guy. Like if I was in a room with Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid and talking football and stuff like that, I would just shut up. I wouldn't say one word. I might not say much at all with Zach Taylor, but I just know based off of the 2 years that we've seen thus far, he doesn't bring any genius level talent that you're just waiting to flourish. I feel like what you're seeing right now is what he is. Can you win in the NFL like that? Sure, but you need a roster around him to do that, and he is not that. And if you're still waiting to find that out, I got sad news for you. Don't wait like 8 years like you did Dalton. Don't wait like you did 16 with Marvin. Like at some point, you got to click it on real fast. Think about your everyday life. Like when you're around people that are in control of situations, you know those people. When you're around people that are not, and you have some input, or you could tell them like, I know what I do. Like I would tell Zach Taylor to move the hell out the way. Let me take it from right here. Let me see what I could do real quick. Like I wouldn't even think about that with Andy Reid. I wouldn't even think about that with some of the greater minds of football. Zach Taylor is not that. I thought when they hired him, I knew a little bit about him. I thought he had like a extra sense that they just hadn't tapped into yet. We in year 2, buddy boy. You ain't tapped in yet. You ain't ever going to tap in. Like for me, because I wouldn't have to see that in the form of 4 or 5 wins like in the first year. He couldn't do that. This year, now I gave you the best quarterback that kind of smoking out since I don't know, since when? Like since when? Like that guy's the best prospect.
Andrew Luck.
He's the best prospect we've ever, that we've seen in damn near 10, 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So now, and you're 1-3-1. Now the seat is hot, and we are here to cut it on. And it's not going to be cut on number 18. I will assure you that. I know y'all want that on Twitter, We will not let that seat get hot. You can tell me about, somebody want to give a second round, or you can tell us about some other scenarios, or you can tell me anything you want, constructive criticism, why. But there is no hot seat for number 18 for a guy that has little bit of time to come into this system. This is his first year in the system. His seat ain't hot. Go look at the one that got you one win this season. That's the hot seat. Talk about him. Don't talk about the guy that's given us some of the greatest memories as Bengals fans. Some of us are older in here that probably say, well, I ain't become a Bengals fan because of AJ Green, but you stayed because of AJ Green. You stayed because of AJ Green. And now you wake up and, get him out of here. He said he wanted to trade. Need I remind you, there was a certain guy that came to a locker room that had a microphone and a camera in his face and said he wanted to be traded and was upset that he didn't get traded because they couldn't pull the deal off before the trade deadline. I don't know if y'all just met me from Twitter or y'all met me from whatever. I got a whole 7-8 years behind me of talking about and documenting. I got folders for number 14. I got all the information y'all need for somebody that quit on a team, that throws the ball away on fourth down, that doesn't really want to be here, and the first time he gets demoted says he wants to get out. You see what I'm saying? And then we got a guy that makes one mistake or gets off and takes off, which I'm not excusing, and now we're all condemning him. That's blasphemy and that's crazy. And that was my final thought, and I felt like I said everything just to get it off my chest. Do you have anything that you want to wrap up? Any thoughts this upcoming week? Anything you want to see for the team?
This upcoming week, man, this is a crucial week. They're talking about don't hit the panic button. The panic button is broken. Like, I started panicking in the Jags game. So for me, hopefully this team bounces back. I'm just on the side for the players, man. I really wish that things get better there. I don't have much faith in this staff. I think me and Zim gave Zach a fair chance. Even last year when we won 2 games, we didn't put any of that on him. We said, he needs to get his own quarterback. He needs to get his own guys. Well, that has happened, and we have one win to show for that. And if we can't beat a washed-up Phillip Rivers and the Colts, and it looks exactly like how it did against Baltimore, I don't know what you do. I really don't know what you do. And Mike Brown, I know that you wrote a letter to the Burrow family with that promise. Zach Taylor and these guys are breaking that promise. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't see them or foresee them firing Zach in the season, but that scares me because if they give him a whole 16 games, what does that do to this team? And we'll have to see, because I think we all wanted Bieniemy a few years ago. We talked about it. They passed on Eric Bieniemy. So, Eric Bieniemy is going to have a whole bunch of offers when the Bengals could have been the team that circled in on him and took him. And it's not even just about Bieniemy not only being with Andy Reid. This was a guy that was a former player, a Bengals player that you could have brought in as a coach that would have brought in a whole bunch of guys with experience. Like, we talked to Jeff Blake. Jeff Blake said that he's waiting to become a quarterback coach underneath Eric Bieniemy because they go back. Imagine, and I wrote this on Twitter, imagine if you would have hired Eric Bieniemy and Jeff Blake would have been your quarterback coach, and they could have tried to get somebody like Big Willie in here to be the offensive line coach. And think about what that staff would have looked like. So
you trying to get me hype, bro? I'm
not even gonna get you hype because
because that's like a dream team right there. Like,
it's a dream that could have come true, but they went with Zach Taylor, which I wasn't mad at. I wanted Bieniemy, but now Eric Bieniemy is gonna have his choice, and he's gonna remember, hey, you guys didn't want me here. I can go to somewhere else and start completely over. I can go to Atlanta. I can go to wherever. I got my pick. And low key, like, he saved the Bengals interview for his last one. So I think that was like a sign that he really wanted the job. Right. And so I don't even want to get you guys' hopes up because obviously it's week 5. The Bengals could turn something around. But I just really with us going into this week after this performance, after seeing what happened in Philly, we wanted Jim Turner. After seeing what happened in the Ravens, we wanted Jim Turner, and he's still there. Like, I don't know. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. I don't know, but that's all that I have for tonight. And the whole before I get out of here, the whole John Ross being sick thing, this coaching staff is starting to lie to us, which I kind of alluded to earlier. I think he does have an illness. He's sick of this coaching staff, and he's sick of them keeping him inactive for 3 weeks. So I think a lot of these players are getting sick, and if they don't go out and they don't compete against the Colts and come out with a win, I think you're going to see a lot of players starting to turn on the staff.
Right. That's been the Orange is the New Black podcast, everyone. Hopefully we can progress. I know you were very adamant saying fire Jim Turner. I'm with you, bro. But ultimately, I just want our team to progress and people to flourish. I want to see people. Thanks. I look at I hate that I talk about the Steelers a lot on here. You know, like their players flourish. Like they give them opportunities. The Chase Claypools of the world score 4 touchdowns and they put them in these opportunities with a master motivator as their coach. You know, like that. All I want is progression. And if that means that we have to preserve Joe Burrow's career by running the football, then we can progress in our running game, because when Joe Burrow is lit, then that's one thing that we don't got to worry about. Like fans got to buy into the ultimate plan, and that's eventually winning the championship. I am not gasping for air for 5 or 6 W's this year just to get this guy some broken ribs walking around Ohio sad as hell. Like I want to win for our future, our son's future. I want this to really be born winners, like Burrow baby. Just like, you know, like this is a thing for me. Like I don't want to see. All right, everybody. That was the Orange is the New Black podcast. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure you follow Ace Boogie, New Stripe City, Instagram, Twitter. Please check out his YouTube. Subscribe. I need people to subscribe to this YouTube as well. It's just Zim Hude. Please subscribe. We love you guys. It's been a great night. Peace and love. Hude.